gameplay isn't memorable. I've always said the most important element of a video game isn't the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, but the story and world building. And what makes a story or universe feel alive isn't necessarily the lore, aesthetics, music, or graphics. They all play a role for sure, but it's the people that makes the experience memorable. And I mean the people that inhabit these worlds, the people that you will come to love, fear, or hate. The ones that make you question your morals and blur the lines between what is right and what is wrong. When it comes to Starfield, your main focus might be base building, stacking up 100 sandwiches, taking out multiple different factions, or surveying every creature you come across as you explore 1000 planets in your newly customizable ship. But for me, it's always been the stories and your companions. So let's talk about them. First up, Sarah Morgan. From a character perspective, Sarah Morgan is undoubtedly one of the most important in the game, as she acts as the linchpin of Constellation, which just happens to be the most important faction in the game. And we have confirmation that you and Constellation will be intertwined early on as you both try to uncover the universe's greatest questions. And to uncover these questions, Constellation will provide you with support, funding, and resources, which by default means you and the head of Constellation, Sarah Morgan, will need to form some type of relationship. Now, if this is strictly cordial, romantic, or platonic, is completely up to you. But before we actually get into how that might affect the game and your playthrough, let's talk about Sarah's bio and her history. Let's go. Ex-soldier and adventurer. As an ex-soldier and adventurer, the burning question for us would be what led her away from a life of thrilling escapades and conflicts to a position behind a desk as the head of Constellation. I'm going to rule out injuries here because the more than likely option is, just like you, she stumbled upon an artifact in a mine and realized there's more to the universe and our role in the galaxy than what we initially thought. A position aligned pretty well with a faction that shared the same enthusiasm and curiosity. Sarah and that faction went on to cross paths numerous times, eventually sharing information and providing each other with support. She received a formal invitation sometime in the near future to join said faction being Constellation, an organization dedicated to answering the universe's greatest questions. Are we really alone? Now, as an ex-soldier and adventurer, we can deduce a few things and take a reasonable guess as to Sarah's profile. Let's talk about the persona of a soldier and the qualities that brings to the table. Soldier, ex-soldier. When it comes to combat, formulating tactics and strategies, Sarah is likely well capable of handling her own. I imagine she's well traveled as soldiers generally take up posts in different regions. I'm going to assume she knows how to lead a team and is efficient at adapting to ever-changing scenarios on the fly. Again, I'm saying this because people who have been in conflict have had to adapt on the fly to survive. It's also not a reach to say she's probably been exposed to the realities of the atrocities in the settled systems. I'm talking bribery, violence, and betrayal. And because it's a do-or-die galaxy, she's not naive to the grim truths of her environment. She's fought and lives in the settled systems, which means she's experienced loss and trauma. I know this may all sound like speculation, and it is, but it's grounded in reason and purpose. I mean, if you were an ex-soldier and adventurer, what qualities and experience would you bring to the table? Think about it. When it comes to writing a character, everything must make sense. And if the backstory doesn't align with the traits and action, then how can every action be justified or make sense? The answer is, it can't. But feel free to let me know if you disagree. Let's keep going. Another thing to note here is Sarah working her way to the head of Constellation shows she's not just all brawns but brains. If she stayed in the military or her previous post as a soldier, she likely would have rose up in the ranks to sergeant or general if she already wasn't. This again emphasizes how much of an important character she is to Constellation, and as someone who can follow and support you on missions, her insight and tactical awareness could prove useful when dealing with enemy factions or puzzle solving. And if you do decide to take her out on missions with you or have her on your ship, expect to receive a boost in botany, lasers, astrodynamics, and of course, leadership. Next point, adventurer. The next point to note her is she used to be an adventurer. Now, from a personality perspective, these are the type of people that are not satisfied with what life has to offer. They tend to be quite curious and seek to break away from universal constraints. This could actually be one of the reasons why she left the military or her previous organization as a soldier. Regardless, being an explorer means she knows the settled systems pretty well. More than likely, she's brushed shoulders with the galaxy's elites and multiple different factions. Her contacts ranges from individuals from all walks of life, some friends, allies, brokers, weapon manufacturers, and enemies. And because we know she's after these artifacts, I imagine her to be a Lara Croft-like figure exploring tombs in her previous life. Again, her and Constellation goals aligned, and she brought her expertise, knowledge, militaristic training, and contacts into the fold. She rose up in the ranks, and the rest is history. Now, from a story perspective, how can your relationship with Sarah Morgan affect your playthrough? As a member of Constellation, Sarah Morgan is directly above you as she is the head. But because you're a space Jedi pushing Dragonborn, you likely answer to no one and will do whatever you want, whenever you want. Just because you and Constellation's interests align in some areas doesn't mean your interests won't also align with the Crimson Fleet or Freestar Collective. This also doesn't mean you're not in this for yourself. As we have confirmation, you'll be able to act as a double agent, betraying factions as you wish. This could potentially make matters interesting and cause conflict between you and Sarah, as she views your objections and refuses to keep Constellation's priorities at the forefront as a form of insubordination. We have to keep in mind she's an ex-soldier and the head of a faction, so authority and accepting the chain of command might have been something she holds dear. I'm not saying this will necessarily lead to any major story twist where Constellation hunts you down as a traitor, but it might make for some interesting conversations and missions, and more importantly, it might lead to some of your companions outright dismissing you. Another potential story point could be the Constellation leadership role. We have confirmation that you will be able to lead all factions in the game, and in Bethesda's previous games, some of this comes at the expense of the current leadership. So what happens to Sarah Morgan if you do become the head of Constellation? Does she step aside like Cora did for the Riders in Mass Effect Andromeda? Or is she more resistant, not only causing your more than friendly relationship with her to collapse, but maybe a potential small-scale civil divide or war, as the other members support you and some support her? That's it. If you guys want me to go into more details on your other companions, do let me know and I'll be sure to drop a video before Starfield actually launches. And yeah, if you like this video, go ahead and give a like, and if you enjoy the content overall on the channel, consider subscribing.